Making animated superhero shows is tricky because comic books are like this, and cartoons are more like this. Comics are like this, and cartoons are like this.
Ding ring, do your thing!
Comics and cartoons, you get the idea. Is a certain degree of censorship inevitable and even necessary when children are part of your target audience? Probably. Are we gonna make fun of the stupid side effects of that censorship anyway? Oh, absolutely. So let's look back at some of our favorite superhero cartoons and uncover the bonkers, the embarrassing, the unbelievable bits of canon that resulted from someone in standards and practices deciding to artistic integrity right in the We're talking about Spider-Man's ban on pigeon violence, Captain America not being allowed to kick Nazi butt, and the time England forced the Ninja Turtles to drop the whole ninja part. This is CanonBall. About 99% of cartoon censorship consists of replacing damn for darn and making anime characters yell, "I'm okay!" after they've been shot in the face or whatever.
The sound of Mark's sonic boomerang caused slight temporary concussions among the enemy.
There's a doctor on planet Ebb. Get me there fast!
But occasionally, the censorship is so dumb that, in a way, it actually increases the show's entertainment value. So let's thank those stuffy TV censors for absurd moments in TV history, like number 4. 90s Spider-Man couldn't punch. Spider-Man, the animated series, was the favorite soap opera of every kid growing up in the 90s. Like Days of Our Lives, but with more alien goo monsters and totally rad superhero action. But can you name a single instance of Spider-Man successfully punching someone? Or anyone punching anyone? There's a lot of swinging and throwing random crap, and rolling around in a way that I find strangely erotic. But no actual punches in sight. The closest we got is when Spidey has to propel his fist through a small portal to take out a villain, although I believe the technical term for this is donkey punch.
Talking about being in a tight spot!
Well, this is all intentional. The producers had a set of rules stating that Spider-Man, quote, couldn't throw punches, toss anyone through glass, put children in jeopardy, have anyone threatened by fire, or even so much as say the word kill.
Shocker's blast should have creamed me.
Yeah, in this universe, Uncle Ben didn't die, he just moved to a farm upstate, where he could run around with all the other father figures. This is why the Bill Clinton era cops in this show inexplicably carry futuristic, non-lethal blasters, and why the Punisher's weapons look like he bought a bunch of Nerf guns at Toys R Us and painted them gray.
Frank, these are awfully big toys.
They even replaced Blade's iconic sword with an imitation lightsaber, which means the name Blade is now false advertisement. Another dumb rule stated that they couldn't show blood being drawn, which is pretty unfortunate when one of your characters is called Morbius the Living Vampire. The solution? Easy. Give Morbius little bee holes on his hands and have him suck people's plasma through that. Yeah, that's way less traumatizing for kids. The censors also deemed the word sinister unacceptable, forcing the Sinister Six to be renamed the
Insidious Six.
because they were clearly drunk on power and just looking for ways to inconvenience the writers. At one point, they left a note saying, "Caution that when Spider-Man lands on the roof, he doesn't harm any pigeons." Either the censors didn't understand how animation works, or the scripts were peppered with random acts of bird violence. Or maybe this was all simply Marvel's way of balancing out the original 1967 Spider-Man cartoon, where Spidey goes around punching people or getting punched every 5 seconds. But probably not, because the same Fox Kids censors were also responsible for the fact that, number 3, the animated X-Men couldn't say kill, hell, or Jewish? Ah, the X-Men. Who can forget characters like Gambit, Jubilee, Hardcase, Topaz, Big Maurice, Mr. Fingernails, Screech, and of course, Professor X. When X-Men the Animated Series came out, it looked like the wildest and most extreme thing our young eyes had witnessed, which is an impressive feat considering the stupid amount of censorship the show went through. Wolverine sure loved popping out his claws, but the censors made sure he mostly used them to attack inanimate objects or prepare midnight snacks.
Want a piece of fruit?
Like in the Spider-Man cartoon, characters couldn't say kill or assassinate, which is why villains were so fond of the word destroy.
I will destroy you!
Destroy them! Destroy Forge and his time machine!
Destroy her! Destroy them all! Bobby, shut up!
Even funeral scenes were frowned upon because they would imply the existence of death, and there's no such thing in a Fox Kids cartoon. When Magneto appears to be destroyed, the censors suggested showing the X-Men, quote, talking informally about Magneto over coffee or something, instead of holding a funeral. Which makes sense when you think about it, because X-Men die and undie so often that Jean Grey's funerals alone would ruin them financially. Hell was another no-no word, hence the Hellfire Club being renamed the Inner Circle Club, which sounds more like a country club that's suspiciously not currently accepting applications, Mr. Eisemann, than a supervillain organization.
I got invitations right here.
Magneto's followers couldn't be called acolytes and couldn't refer to him as their savior because of the religious connotations, which must have been a huge blow to his ego.
It cannot be!
Another thing Magneto was never called in this show? Well, Jewish. In the comics and the movies, the fact that he's a Holocaust survivor is a huge part of the character. But in the show, Professor X met Magneto after a vague war in a vague Eastern European country at a vague point in time. And together, they fought generic soldiers left over from said war. Unless both of them were unusually tall children, I'm guessing that's not World War II there. Other episodes show Magneto as a kid in a war-torn landscape. Wait, is that the same war that apparently lasted like 20 years? Or did Magneto live through 2 World Wars II? Either way, damn, that is unlucky. The reluctance to identify the baddies in those war flashbacks as Nazis gets weirder when you find out that around this time, Marvel and Fox Kids were planning a show about Captain America's wartime adventures. Hence this and this. Come on, what were they gonna do? Make a Captain America cartoon set in World War II but without Nazis? Of course not, but not for lack of trying. Number 2. The canceled Captain America cartoon set in World War II, but without Nazis. Captain America was created for the specific purpose of punching Nazis by a man with first-hand Nazi punching experience, no less. And yet, when Marvel tried to get a TV show about Cap off the ground in the 90s, it was decreed that the word Nazi couldn't be used to describe the bad guys, just like the X-Men show couldn't acknowledge Nazi war crimes. Because, as the old saying goes, those who forget history are doomed to have a swell time, because history is kind of a huge bummer. Now, there are plenty of Captain America stories in the comics that don't have Nazis in them, like when Cap battles werewolves, or his own addiction to hard drugs. So what's the problem? The problem is that this show is going to be set in World War II, so which side is Cap supposed to be fighting on in this test reel? And yes, the whole show would have happened in World War II. It's not like Cap gets frozen in the first episode and is learning about the Goo Goo Dolls and Beanie Babies by the second.
Who are these people?
This caused troubles for legendary Marvel Comics writer Steve Englehart when he wrote an episode called Skullhenge, which of course involved the Red Skull reshaping Stonehenge into a giant swastika. Englehart was told they couldn't show swastikas on uniforms, let alone in giant stone form, thus ruining the entire motif of his masterpiece.
That was idiotic.
Another big problem with the show is that, despite having at their disposal a perfectly good secret identity in Steve Rogers,
Be Captain America, Steve.
they decided that Cap's real name should be Tommy Tompkins, like he's a protagonist of a junior mystery novel or something. Also, the storyboards for his buffing up scene make you wonder if the animators didn't think they were making a Hulk cartoon.
Cap smash non-specific fascists.
In the end, Marvel pulled the plug on the show, not because it was a terrible idea, but because they were literally broke at the time. But the fact that it was a terrible idea probably didn't help. On the other hand, the fact that this show banned the depiction of swastikas, even for historical purposes, and didn't let you call a Nazi, predicted Facebook community guidelines by decades. Now that's impressive. Speaking of America, let's stop picking on the US of A and talk about dumb cartoon censorship happening somewhere else for a change. Number 1, in England, the Ninja Turtles couldn't be ninjas. In the 1980s, England had a ninja problem, which is a lot less exciting than it sounds. The martial arts craze of the 70s had left authorities terrified that everyone was about to put on black pajamas and overthrow the monarchy. And the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles paid the price. Or should I say, the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. Since cartoons were banned from showing ninjas, and the British censors weren't so cruel as to deprive their children of turtle mania, they reached a compromise. The Ninja Turtles were mutated into Hero Turtles by editing the logo and re-recording the theme song. The part that goes,
Splinter taught them to be ninja teens.
became,
Splinter taught them to be fighting teens.
which which makes it sound like the Turtles would go around picking fights with kids. The change also applied to all of the merchandise, from the games to the comics to the cool dude joke books. If you compare the original intro to the British one, you might notice another significant difference. All instances of Michelangelo using his nunchucks have been replaced with random shots from the show, as if this version was set in a bizarre and improbable alternate reality, where Mikey is allowed to remain on the team, not because he was useful in a fight, but because the others actually really liked his jokes. The same went for the show itself, because to the minds of the people who have chosen to censor cartoons for a living, 2 sticks tied together with a chain is much deadlier than a razor-sharp sword. In the later seasons, the show's creators took pity on the British censors and replaced Mikey's nunchucks with a grappling hook called the Turtle Line, which is somehow lamer than having no weapon at all. Then again, if Shredder's next plan involves spelunking, he is f***ed. The more recent versions of the Ninja Turtles in the UK have reverted back to the original name and weapons, and you know what? Let's check Wikipedia. Nope, looks like England still hasn't been overrun by ninjas. Not yet, anyway. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of CannonBall. Jump in the comments and let me know if I should go fart my own hush puppy, or flip my grandmother with a big wooden spoon, or maybe jimmy rig a bunch of Krell boings.